Hey, it's Eric here. I invite you to follow along as I walk through how I solve the first three interaction activities. So I really love these activities because they remind me of debug it. So there's a lot of different ways to go about and solve these. So this is just my sort of thinking on how to solve the first three here. So what I've done is I've actually copy pasted the first three interactions that we have to do, the activities. So I just added a comment here, and then I just copy pasted. Okay, so that's just for me to make it a little bit easier so I don't have to keep jumping back and forth. But I'll have to make a project for each of these activities. So I'll call this one Interaction 1, Interaction Puzzle 1, okay. Great, and I'll make sure I share this in the correct studio, which is the Interaction Puzzle 1 studio. That being said, we're given the directions. When you press the B key, the sprite gets a little bigger. When you press the S key, the sprite gets a little smaller. Okay, so I think this one's pretty easy. So what I'll do is I need an event because it's when something is clicked. So when the B key is pressed, let's go ahead and make this sprite increase in size. So we would go to looks, and let's go ahead and say change size by 10 because that'll make our sprite bigger by 10, right? And then likewise, we can go ahead and say when the S key is pressed, S, we can go ahead and use something similar, but instead of having 10, let's go ahead and make it -10. So it will be decreasing in size, okay? And let's go ahead to and initialize when the green flag is clicked. Let's go ahead and always have our sprite be at 100%. Okay, so when we start over, we don't have to worry about him being really tiny or really big. So let's go ahead and try this. So when B is clicked, we can see that our sprite gets bigger. When S is clicked, our sprite gets smaller. So that was pretty easy. That was a pretty easy one to start with. So all I have to do is just go ahead and share this project into this studio here. So I just copy paste this link here for the Interaction Puzzle 1 and then just share it within that studio. So I won't bother doing that now because I want to dive here into the next one. So I should create another project here, but for the sake of time and just demonstrating this, I'll go ahead and use the same project that I'm in right now, okay? And what I could do is tell you what, I could just go ahead and I could save as a copy, okay? And if I save it as a copy, I could just rename this to Puzzle 2. There we go. So now I don't have to recopy paste my notes here. So I'm actually in a different project. So, just give it 1 second here to load. All right, good. So I'll get rid of what I had. What else do they want us to do? Whenever the sprite hears a loud noise, a loud sound, it changes color. So this one's a little tougher. So whenever a sprite hears a loud sound, so I think that is going to be a sensing block when we have audio being heard. So that is when we have loudness. So loudness is the measure of volume coming in through the microphone that we have, and that has a numeric value to it. So we can see here, if I click this, I want to allow Scratch to use my camera and my microphone. So we see as I talk, if I talk loudly, it goes up in the 60s, but if I use a conversational voice, it hovers around 20. So if I hear a loud sound, that's probably something over about 30, right, on this scale. So what I want to do is, I guess, think about using an operator. And tell you what, let's go ahead and say, just drag this out now, and let's just talk about this really quickly. So if this variable loudness is greater than, let's say, 20, that means I'm talking pretty loud. So that, I think, should trigger this event. Now, what do we want to happen? We want the sprite to change color. Okay, so we'll do an if-then statement. So we'll do when green flag is clicked, okay, and then we'll say if loudness exceeds 20, so I'll just drop my operator in here. If loudness exceeds 20, then we'll go to a color effect here, change color effect by 25. So that's going to change the color by 25. So we need to put this in a forever loop because right now it's only going to say when green flag is clicked. So as soon as we start the project, we need to have loudness over 20 according to this configuration now. But what we want to say is forever be asking if this is true. Forever be asking this if-then statement. All right. So even after I've clicked the green flag, so I'll be talking, and you see if I exceed that, the sprite starts to change colors. So that is a very, 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 very cool project. So again, I would just go ahead and rename this to, and then share it in the correct studio here. Okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and stop this program from running, and we'll go ahead and jump into the third one here, and that is whenever the sprite is in the top 25% of the screen, say I like it up here. Okay, so I'm going to save as a copy, so we create a new one here. So whenever the sprite is in the top 25% of the screen, so I'm going to think about the x and the y coordinates that I have to work with, right? Because we know that this is actually an xy grid, and you can see the coordinates down here in the bottom right. So I don't remember the coordinates offhand, so what I'll do is I'll go to my backdrops here, and this is really cool. In our backdrops, we have an XY grid that we can use as a cheat sheet. So we would say then the top 25% of the screen would be when the Y exceeds 90. Because if I do my math correctly, this is 180 on top, right? And negative 180 on bottom. So if we split the difference here, that would be a fourth, and that would be approximately Y plus y positive 90. So we would have to do an if-then statement similar to what we did before, and say forever be asking this if-then statement, and we'll say, you know, if our y position is greater than 90, do something. So this is similar to the sound one. So if we go to looks, and there's actually, we go to motion rather, when we select, when we select this, and we say, what is the y position? Well, the y position is actually a variable. We can see right now the y position is 0. So we want to see when it's over 90. And as you can see, I was actually doing this all on the stage backdrop here, which is why when I switch over to my sprite, it wasn't there. So what I can do is I can just drag and drop this onto my sprite, okay, and it will appear there, or I could grab it and drop it into my backpack. So what I did is I just switched it from my backdrop on to my sprite. Okay, so now that we're on the sprite, let's say that y position, if that y position is greater than 90, whoops, I have that flipped here. So if 90, okay, so if greater than 90 y position, then say this, right? So then we'll go ahead and have our thing, our cat say, I like it up here. I like it up here. Cool. So we can go ahead and try this out, and we'll see. Okay, so here's something. Maybe what we do is I'm trying to move my cat, but I realize that I haven't actually configured anything for him to move with. I haven't configured any, like, if the up key is pressed, then go up, or if the down key is pressed, go down. I haven't configured that yet. But what we can do is we can just test it out by dragging and dropping and see, yeah, when it exceeds that, he will go ahead and say it. Okay. So, but now you're thinking, well, how do I go ahead and get rid of it if he's not on the top here, he's still saying it? So then that would be, if not this, then don't say anything. Okay, so then we could go ahead and say, how would we do this? Let's think about this for a second. Well, what we could do is actually, to get rid of the speech bubble, is if you go ahead and insert no text, it will actually delete the speech bubble. So I think what we do is actually we do an if then else, and say if, you know, we want the if then that we have above, but then the else. So if this isn't true, we want our scratch cat to be saying nothing. So what I'll do is just have an empty say block. Okay, so now I will get rid of that if then that we had before and just plug this in, and let's go ahead and try it. So you can see, yeah, like if I go ahead and move it up here, then we have the correct saying, but if we move it down, he is not saying it. So that is the quick and dirty way to do this. And if we want, we can go ahead and actually have create commands where we can move the cat with our arrow keys. But it doesn't specifically say to do that here, so we'll go ahead and I'll just leave it as is right now. But it's pretty cool to have the if then else, and just to keep in mind that if you have nothing in the say block, you'll go ahead and not have anything in your speech bubble. So that is your intro for these first three interactions. So I hope you have fun with the other 6, and I hope that your solutions are a little bit different and maybe more streamlined than mine.